Previously on the Two Fish at the Table podcast.
So
Hey, if you find another poker horror film, I'd be happy to do this again. But I hope it's better than this one.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Two Fish at the Table Poker podcast. We are joined by our friend Void, and we're going to be doing a double feature this time around on the podcast. That's right, two films right at you. The first film is called The Haunted Casino, aka Dead Man's Hand, aka a 75-minute Goosebumps episode made for 18-year-olds in 2007.
and we'll also be reviewing looking at a reanalysis of a film we covered a couple years ago, inspired by the book Bringing Down the House. The movie actually called Bringing Down the House, starring Queen Latifah and Steve Martin. And Void will be joining us for providing a third opinion onto that lovely comedy film from 22 years ago. All right, a great reaction there, Void. I'm just kidding. We're going to actually be re-reviewing 21 again. Oops, whoa, blurry.
It's blurred.
It's blurred. It's so bad. Based upon the book Bringing Down the House here that we have right here, also blurred. Oops. Anyway, so Void, thank you for joining us here. And again, this re-look back was really inspired by the fact that we had discussed the film 21, how you actually were a pretty big fan of the film when it first came out in subsequent years, and we were maybe a bit more on the negative side. So we're going to see if maybe upon a rewatch, if there's a bit more of a middle ground there for us to discuss. So anyway, so we'll begin with the Haunted Casino slash. So this film came out in 2007. So it's kind of funny how many of these sort of casino poker films kind of came out in that like 2 year period where like Lucky You, Casino Royale, 21. These all kind of came out in the mid 2000s part of the timeline here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting time for movies. Obviously the poker world was kind of going through changes at the time, right? The poker boom was kind of tapering off 2006, 2007. So it's kind of interesting that these movies came into the picture around then.
Yeah, and so that's really this film it's got two kind of official names: Dead Man's Hand, which apparently means aces and eights and five card draw, which I never knew honestly, and then the Haunted Casino. And I had stumbled upon this film when I was just trying to do a quick, Google search for various poker and gambling related films, and it was actually available for free on Amazon Video. So we were fortunate enough to be able to very easily watch it, and it's a 75 minutes movie. It's like 80 minutes if you pull it up on Amazon, but then the opening credits and end credits are a good maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes of that runtime. So it's actually a very brief film. It doesn't overstay its welcome, I suppose. But like you mentioned, Sam, it did kind of feel like a glorified adult Goosebumps episode, really.
Yeah, I mean, before we really get into this, I mean, we should take into account this is a B movie, right? It's low budget. It's not trying to pretend to be anything it's not. There's no astute commentary on the socio-political condition of America or anything. The guy that made this movie is called Charles Band, who seems to be a pretty established horror film B-movie director. He's done films in the Puppet Master series. He's done the Evil Bong films, which include Evil Bong 1, Evil Bong 2, Evil Bong 3D, The Wrath of Bong, Evil Bong 420, Evil Bong High Five, Evil Bong 666, Evil Bong 777, and who can forget the classic Oscar-winning Evil Bong 888, Infinity High. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here.
Yeah, Void, what was your original expectations for this film before you sat down to watch it?
I was shocked that you found a horror film that had anything to do with poker or casinos or blackjack or anything like that. And within the first 5 minutes, I immediately knew that it had to be a budget horror movie because the special effects were terrible. Although I will say the concepts for some of the monsters, so to speak, I'll call them monsters for now. Conceptually, they were kind of cool looking, but they weren't fleshed out enough, so it just came across as cheesy, like very, very cheesy. And the characters were flat. Like even Sam called it a Goosebumps for 18-year-olds. No, Fear Street was for 18-year-olds. Goosebumps was for kids, and honestly, this didn't even meet the Goosebumps serialized TV show quality. Like, even that was better quality than this. The characters actually had some dimension. These characters were so flat and boring that I wanted nothing to do with them. And like by the end of the film, I was like, okay, why did I just watch this? Oh yeah, because Ben asked me to.
Yeah, so really, this film kind of feels like baby's first, like baby writer's first, like attempt at a horror film, and there's a lot of very transparent foreshadowing and breaking up of scenes where, we have a main cast of six youngish people. I'm not really sure how old they are. They're probably in like their mid-20s or something like that, or maybe a couple a little bit younger, but they're kind of like these generic young adults with no real job or any purpose in life. They just had to have these basic archetypal horror tropes. So you have usually in horror films when you have a young cast of characters that get picked off one by one. Usually you have the sex obsessed couple, you have the jerk, you have the nice guy, you have the nice guy's girlfriend, you have the snarky, I don't leave me alone, I don't care about you guys, leave me alone, I'm angry at you for no reason. The very bare bones, bullet point were the character descriptions here, and usually some scene early on foreshadows how they're going to die or the character flaw that relates to how they're going to meet their end. And this film pretty much brings up those tropes pretty transparently through from the very I want to say like the first third of the film. You can already kind of guess where each character's arc is going to go.
Yeah, the dialogue is so clunky, especially early on. I mean, so much exposition about Franco Dragma, who used to run this casino. And then there's also these terrible attempts at comedy. Like the first line that I knew, like, oh my God, I'm gonna hate this movie, is there's a guy and a woman who come into this haunted casino, right? It's the opening scene. They've both got like flashlights, they're inspectors or something. And the guy turns to the woman's like, well, we better get out of here. We better do this quick. IT vote Jeopardy. Oh, I knew it was going to be bad after that.
Yeah, the film
Actually,
really kind of has three acts to it. The first act is the opening sort of scene where these two people are wandering the casino, and it's really rather than the haunted casino, it's more than just the dusty casino. There's literally, I mean, they didn't spare any expense. They did capture the look of a place covered in cobwebs, so I'll give them credit for that, I guess. But a place being covered in dust does not equate scary or atmospheric, really. It just kind of means it's just kind of dirty. It makes you want to wash your hands after seeing it.
so I did figure out that the lady in the beginning of the film, that was actually the executor of the uncle's will. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
They didn't do a good job of connecting that. Like, just all of a sudden, huh, why is this phone going off? Oh, it's the executor. Like, there was no real, like, they could have introduced the character better instead of just like, why is this lady going into a super dusty cobweb covered casino? Like, there
yeah.
was no like explanation why she was even there.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because, ironically, given how unatmospheric the whole film was, the opening scene where the guy is just kind of walking around the old place and there's noises in the background, that's probably as atmospheric as the whole film ever gets, really. So in a weird way, it's almost kind of the high point of the film, even though it's pretty, just a guy walking for literally 5 minutes. This is a very long sequence, given that the film's only 80 minutes long in totality. And the biggest issue, though, really for me was both of these two characters get killed, but it's not framed well or shot well or really paced well. Where like at one point, the lady she goes behind a door, and then we just see like a splat of the behind the door, and it also doesn't really even contrast with how the ghost function by killing people later in the movie. So you'd think maybe if you really wanted to sell the casino vibe for later, maybe just have like they open a door and they hear like a casino sound, and the door closes, and then you cut away. That way, it kind of gives you a little bit of intrigue or mystery as to what's going to happen for the six youngsters later. But the way they're just kind of like a monster finds them, just kind of like eats them or kills them or something. It doesn't jive with how the deaths are handled later in the film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
mean, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Sam. I was just gonna say, yeah, you're absolutely right then, because in the beginning, the ghost that killed those two characters, there was no lead up for why she killed them. Because later in the movie, she had reasons to kill characters. She came up with reasoning for it. In the beginning, it's just like, oh, there's a person here. I'm gonna kill them. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least the one thing that this opening sequence has going for is it establishes the location, right? We see where all the rooms are and all that. But again, as Ben mentioned, like it just looks dusty. And there's also the lighting just seems to be really weird. Like there's like light coming down from the ceiling, and then it's later on established that the lights are still functioning, even though this is like a 40-year abandoned casino. So like, how are the lights functioning? Are there holes in the ceiling where sunlight's coming in? And then later on, the windows get bricked up. So like, what exactly is the geography here? So the one thing that I felt this opening had going for is like, okay, I see where everything is. This is where the movie's going to take place. Doesn't make sense as time goes on. So this just gets nothing right.
And then, part two of the textbook, how to write a horror film, itinerary here is we have to cut now to our six, protagonists, I guess, in their hotel rooms where we sort of see they're kind of informally broken into couples of two for the rest of the film. They don't really, intermix with each other as they're in the casino later on, and so we sort of have to get the character establishing shots of who's who. And we have our main couple. Scott White plays Matthew Dragna, and I know him from he played the goalie of the opposing team in Mighty Ducks 2 and 3. So I'm going to refer to him as Scooter, which is what he's called in D3 of Mighty Ducks, by the way. So Scooter is with his girlfriend, and he is the one who has, I guess, inherited his uncle's like old casino from 4 decades ago, which is kind of strange, but I guess he's the only remaining relative left, so that's why it's him and not somebody else. His girlfriend is like the most nice, understanding, but bossy girlfriend you'll ever see in horror films. She's always like, you can turn this into a real casino. You can do it." And she's always smiling. They don't fight ever, and she's always like trying to touch him, basically. And then the other two couples are. We have one couple's not really a couple per se, and we know a little bit more later on in the film why they're not really a couple. We have kind of like the nerd character where she always wears glasses and she's good at math, which is a very standard horror trope. And then kind of like the meant to be funny comic relief kind of jerky, guy who's paired with her for majority of their in the casino scenes. And then we have the most annoying characters in the whole film, the third couple.
Yeah, I wound up calling these characters in my notes the main couple. So there's the main man and the main woman, the nerd couple, the nerd woman and the nerd man, and then the sex couple, which is the sex man and the sex woman, because I can't remember their names.
Yeah, and so while we didn't have a ton of nudity or sexual stuff in Poker Night, the last film that we covered, if you avoid, this film definitely leans pretty heavily into that with just some really atrocious writing and some atrocious character development between the sex couple, as Sam has called them.
Well, they also did it with the nerd girl too. They tried to establish her as being possibly a closeted lesbian. But what was very strange is they presented this and then they never went anywhere with it. Like, why even bother introducing this? Were you just trying to hop on the LGBTQIA alliance stuff? Like, just showing you're an ally by presenting a single character as possibly lesbian and then never speaking about it again? Like, what was the point to that?
I mean, I guess they kind of alluded a little bit to the sex couple female being like maybe bisexual, maybe by sort of like, leaning into lesbian saying, "Hey, I can kind of help you with your problem." But
But they
again,
never went anywhere with
yeah,
it. What was the point?
yeah, it was a little strange. And again, so the sex couple's, story arc is he has, erectile dysfunction and the girlfriend's frustrated, so they have to, in order to maintain the facade that they can have their own bed, their own room in the hotel, that they're always going at it over every night, which is just a really dumb thing. I mean,
Yeah, like, why do they have to be all about sex? They could have been like, developing like emotional connections as a couple rather than like, oh, all we ever do is have sex. Like, why? Why is this a thing?
and it only exists really to give what a ghost can entice sex couple male with later on in the film. And so once we get those like it's a very maybe like 5 or 6 minutes of them in the hotel room, we're now back to the master set of this film, the actual casino, and they're going in, they're just sort of trying to see just looking at it and see if they can turn clean things up and make it into a new casino. And because it was established that they really have like no money to do this with, I just in my head was constantly thinking to myself, just sell the building, sell the land, do something like that. Even before the ghosts even show up, just like why are you bothering with this at all?
And they go
Right,
into the
right.
building and they're not wearing face masks or respirators or gloves or anything. They're like wearing their normal clothes. Like there's asbestos, there's lead, there's all sorts of stuff in this casino. You guys don't have to clean it yourself. It's not hard to find a cleaning crew to come in and clean it if you want to clean this place. It doesn't make any sense at all.
And then so really the next couple of scenes is really just them wandering around and the couples kind of pair off and check out like different casino games. So whether it's roulette, the slots, blackjack, and again it's very, it's supposed to be like foreshadowing what happens later in the film. And again, I'm not against the idea of there being like this mysterious haunted casino because there's a lot of cool things you can do with that. And they do at least sort of we get a vague story of what kind of the ghost story of the movie is related to the uncle having business partners and employees and betrayals and deaths and getting revenge. And so that all is okay. I don't have any problem with the basic tenets of the ghost story and how it relates to the uncle had five employees that died, and now the nephew has five friends that are going to die, and so that's all in my mind probably the most tolerable part of the overall story of the film. It's just not very much of a focus though.
Yeah, it just feels like an exposition dump. I mean, this sequence is just really, really boring to me, where there's just like, oh, this guy tried to take over my uncle's casino, and there was a craps dealer and a roulette dealer and a slot woman, and so it's like, oh, they're gonna play those games later on in the film. And then again, yeah, this is where the sex couple is taking photos of each other, and then the nerd woman finds the camera, and again, it's just like, why are the scenes structured like this? Why is it this order of information? And like nothing scary happens. Again, the casino doesn't look scary, it just looks dusty. You just need a vacuum cleaner, that's it. It just doesn't make sense.
And then the instant it's like so at one point the girlfriend of the main character she's playing the slot machine and like an eyeball or like a finger pops out or no a tooth comes out of the machine and at
Three.
that point just leave the casino just get out of there. I mean it's so silly that they're all experiencing these variously haunted situations that this is before the danger part of it but still some haunted stuff here. It would just peace out and just get out of there. Right? I didn't buy that they would be like, yeah, let's just have a sleepover now in here. Let's spend the night here. Let's have some beer. Let's hook up with each other and let's just have a party. Like, no, this is a dust cesspool, and you're being even if you don't think it's a ghost yet, it's still not a pleasant experience at this point. So anyway, so I guess with that point, really kind of at this point, so sex couple male guy, he encounters this ghost of this waitress's past, and she's like trying to flirt with him, and while at the blackjack table area, we get a little bit of like card counting, 101, which is kind of funny how it's relevant to the next film we'll discuss in 21 a little bit later. So you can almost kind of call these both, blackjack movies that we're reviewing here today. And again, I'm not against the blackjack. That scene probably for me is the least offensive of the three because it's kind of almost amusing that the other guy is like using a mirror behind her to see what her card is. So I don't know. I guess again, as far as given this is a pretty bad film, this seems that seems probably one of the better ones because the other ones are so much worse, if you ask me.
Yeah, they actually explain card counting a little bit, and from what I can tell, it seems like the card counting strategy is actually fairly well explained. She explains if there's low cards showing, then it's more likely that high cards are going to come, so you should play a certain action. Vice versa, if there's high cards showing, low cards are more likely to come. So I actually thought, okay, wow, that was a good little moment in the writing. So points there.
Yes. But then, but again, nothing is really particularly scary or atmospheric at this point. It's just more just kind of people talking in a room. And then it's really not until as we're getting pretty late into the film that some of this spooky stuff begins to happen where they're all trying to go to sleep. And our main couple is kind of woken up by the ghosts of the casino played by Sid Haig
Sid
and
Haig.
Sid Haig?
Sid Haig.
Sid Haig and
Haig.
Michael Berryman. No, no, yeah.
Michael Berryman, yeah.
Michael Berryman, yes. And so I will give them credit. These two are probably the best parts of the film in that at least they are acting somewhat menacing, I guess, a little bit. And Sid Haig kind of looks kind of, ghostly because, of his appearance, not to be rude or anything, but and I know he's also kind of a veteran of a lot of smaller horror films anyway, so it's kind of more up his alley anyway. But it's just kind of the staging of this is very funny because they're just both kind of sleeping on the ground and they're like being woken up and being like choked and it didn't really seem like it felt like a very like typical horror film confrontation moment to me.
It didn't feel very gangster either, because they're supposed to be mobsters, you know? And I will say though, I think that Sid Haig as the Word, I believe was his mobster name. I think that was the most believable character out of all of them, and probably the only character that had any real depth in any way, shape, or form. Not enough depth, but more depth than any of the others, which is kind of sad because of how late he's finally presented to us as an actual, like, this character is part of the film and not just a scary bedtime story.
And it's also revealed around this part in the film as well that there's a stockpile of gold that the uncle had kept hidden, and that's kind of like almost kind of what keeps the group from leaving earlier in the film because they want to find this gold, but then at the same time, gold, your life. Gold, your life. I think I took my life before I looked for some gold here, and so that's kind of like the little at this point I knew the instant they mentioned gold, I'm like, oh, they're gonna at least one of them's gonna get out alive and have the gold. No, that's supposed to be the ending of the film, and I was ultimately right. But then so at this point, the other members of the gang are being targeted by the ghosts. So there's a blackjack dealer that's kind of meant to be this ghostly figure that's gonna haunt them, and then we have obviously the two we have the Roy and Gil, and then there's this waitress that's sort of um, you know, flirting with the erectile dysfunction guy. And so again, she's kind of meant to be like unhinged, like by if you insult her, she'll like kill you. But it just again, the rules for the casino as far as what a ghost can do or how they act was inconsistent throughout the whole film, and it didn't really work for me, which is why I guess I kind of latched on more to Gil and Roy because at least they were a bit more grounded in what they were allowed to do or what or not do.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's odd. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Oh, it's okay. It's all good. You're a guest. I have to accommodate you.
Sam. I was just gonna say that I think it was actually silver bars, not gold.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
the other thing is I'm really disappointed with how they handled the blackjack dealer, because like he actually came across as a nice guy. Like he seemed like a genuinely nice guy and was like, I'm just doomed to be here. Let's have a fun game. And then they just completely changed what kind of personality the blackjack dealer seemed to have later. So I was not happy about that. Also, the scene with the blood pouring out of the toilet was just fucking weird.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I
Sorry,
mean,
you might have to bleep that, but yeah, that was just weird. All right, that's
yeah.
all I wanted to add.
Oh, no, no problem. I mean, that blood toilet thing was really weird. I thought so too. Like, there's also this thing where, like, it was the sex guy who sees it, and then the main guy comes in, and, like, the blood is no longer there. They did it with the teeth, too. Like, she sees the teeth in the slot machine, and then he comes over and sees it, and there's no teeth there. Like, the rules are so inconsistent. Like, Michael Berryman and Sig Haig don't have, like, ghost faces or whatever, but the other three do, and then like you can take weapons from each other and kill people. And it's just like why are they ghosts? How are they ghosts? What can they do? What can't they do? Why are they targeting these people specifically? Just you don't have to explain all the rules. Like you don't have to give an exposition to the camera about it, but just have a little bit of consistency about why things are happening the way they are. Like I agree with you, Void. It would have been really interesting if the blackjack dealer was actually a nice guy. And oh, I just happened to be here. Oh, I made a mistake 40 years ago. I shouldn't have done that. But then he just turns out to be this thing. There's just no consistency at all.
Now, I was, with the blackjack deal in particular, so he is handcuffing his opponent to the table, which is the our nerd glasses girl, who's our blackjack expert, and so he's forcing her to play blackjack, and if she wins the hand, she gets to go home, and if she loses the hand, she dies. Although at various points, the price of paying is either your life or your arm, which ultimately is your life, which is a little strange. You'd feel like, I feel like it could have been a kind of a cool thing where like they were tempting somebody with money and then they won some money and then they made them like double down, but they didn't have enough money, so they had to worship like add in their soul to the pot or something. That could have been kind of cool. I mean, the handcuff kind of appearing out of nowhere, I guess, was kind of a surprise. I guess, you can't leave until you play. Again, that's the kind of thing I would have expected from a film called The Haunted Casino. Being forced to gamble and ultimately losing. But I thought it kind of could have been kind of cool had the nerd girl like won and been able to leave, because she really wasn't like a bad person. Like usually in horror films, there's a broad idea of there being like a good person and a bad person. If you're rude, you're arrogant, you're racist, you're sexist, you're overly sexed or something like that, you're in the bad category. And if you're not really any of those, and you're kind of maybe you're going to live or mostly live probably. And so she would have fit probably the good side of that if had it come to it. But I guess maybe being a lesbian meant that she had to be bad. I don't know, Hollywood logic, whatever. I don't know. But so she ultimately dies, and in the rest of the group in short order, one by one, go out. And but the thing is that with the nerd couple, we determined that the dealer from Blackjack is cheating, because we see the Ace of Spades come out twice, and they check the deck, and of course, Roy comes over and and reveals, oh, it's not in there. And so ghosts are allowed to cheat at blackjack, which I guess you would kind of expect, but at the same time, it kind of undercuts the idea that this is a fair fight when you have a fair fight for the climax of the movie later anyway. So it just was kind of strange.
Yeah, the roulette was the thing that really bothered me. Is like the sex guy is playing roulette. He gets it right, but then he pisses the the slots girl off. So then she changes it so that it lands on red instead, and then she takes the sword and kills him. So it's like they can just cheat and kill anybody. Why do they have to go through all these games? Why don't you just kill them if you want to kill them, right? And like, what would happen if you did kill them? If you got all five of them, would you be allowed to leave the casino? Why do you need to exact revenge on this guy? What are the rules? Just tell me what the rules are, and I'll be so much happier.
And again, the blackjack dealer literally like chops off his penis, which is just kind of disgusting. But again, like I feel like you wouldn't just bleed out from that. You wouldn't die instantly. So, but it's like their bodies like almost just kind of like when their arm gets cut off or something like that. So that didn't make a lot of sense. And then so as we're literally down to our final two here. As often the case, the main couple are the last two survivors of a horror film, and we get perhaps for me the worst plotted paced climax in the history of horror fiction, because we're led to believe that we're still with the blackjack dealer dealing the cards from blackjack, that the climax should be a game of blackjack. But instead, it just becomes all of a sudden it's five card draw, and the cards are dealt face up, and we're not. No one says the words five card draw. All we're told is that that Matt makes the word here promise that the deck is not rigged, so that it's a fair fight, and if they win, they get to leave. And then the cards just get dealt out, and then they just leave, and the movie's over. I mean, it was preposterously planned. I mean, I can't imagine someone would have written a script like that, and then so maybe they like tossed out the last few pages of the script, something like that. But it was the weirdest ending I've ever seen.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you something. The way that film was paced and the way that it ended was basically the same pacing and kind of just sudden abrupt ending, like, oh, it's all done, as one of my students when I was still back in Texas would write. She loved writing, but she'd get through all this stuff and then she'd rush the ending because she didn't know how to end it. And that's how this film felt. It was like a elementary school student wrote it, except they had the knowledge of sex to add to it. It's just such a weird dichotomy, especially because they put so much sexual crap in it. And I mean crap. It wasn't, there was nothing entertaining about any of the sexual bits. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
I granted I don't typically like sex scenes in films and stuff, but like when you make sex jokes and imply sexual stuff, like it's usually not so boring. Like this is just straight up boring.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because with poker, I mean, had this been like an intense thing where they're dealt the five cards and then they look at their hand, they have to like pitch cards and then get five cards, get some cards back, looking proper five card draw. There could be some suspense. We saw a film called Finder's Fee that there can be some suspense with five card draw poker because you begin with five random cards and you can have total of nothing. Then you have to, it's totally on chance if you can improve your hand. But the way it's just kind of the cards are peeled off one by one and we don't it wasn't clear that it was not blackjack, so I was really confused. And then just really and then eventually I figured it out by the end, but you don't want to be sucked out of the moment like that when you're watching a film at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few really big problems with this ending, and it really kind of brings down to the fact that there's no closure here. Like, number one, four of your friends just got murdered. This is not a happy ending. Oh, yeah, you found all this silver. Yeah, you got rid of these two ghosts. Your four best friends are dead. You should be a little bit sad about that. Two, you have these six dead bodies in your casino. Like, what are you going to do? Call the cops and be like, officers, I can explain everything. There were these ghosts of these people that my uncle killed 40 years ago. Like, you're screwed on that count. And then three, you have all these ghosts in your casinos. They weren't defeated, they weren't exorcised. They're still in your casino. And as we saw with the blackjack girl, or excuse me, the slots girl, she can just kill people on her own volition. So if you open this casino up, they can just kill people whenever they want. So this is not a happy ending at all. There's no closure here. We're supposed to think, yay, our main couple is A-okay. They've got all this money. What? Like, they didn't resolve any of these plot points at all.
Yeah, and literally it just ends on a shot of them like smiling, like, "Yay, we made it, woohoo!" And at least give me a shot of them walking out of the casino or something. I mean, earlier in the film, we see that all the doors are locked, the windows are boarded up, they can't escape, and they're trying to figure it out. And again, being locked in a confined space is very, for me, usually a good catalyst for adding to tension or adding to drama. And they just kind of again, none of their decision making inside the casino really impressed me at all. And I really wish that they could have taken the idea of a haunted casino a bit further and maybe had maybe an extra 15 20 minutes and maybe had just more of establishing some atmosphere and some suspense because as is again just walking from one dusty room to the next with a lot of cobwebs it just does not equate to me as entertainment.
Yeah, I really have nothing positive to say about this. I brought up Goosebumps earlier. The music made this sound like a Goosebumps episode out of the 90s or something. And even like from the show from the 90s, like the Scarecrow walks at midnight, like that was childhood trauma for me growing up. Like, oh, it was like so well shot and, a scarecrow at night walking around like that. A 1990s episode of a children's show was scarier than this film made by adults. That just kind of says everything, I think.
And also, during the first, say, like 20, 25 minutes, Sam and I were watching this together, we weren't sure like what year the film was made because the picture quality was pretty low quality. So I was like, is this from the 90s? And it was from 2007? I mean, I was taken off guard by how recent the film had been made with that, with just
Yeah,
how low quality the image is.
I actually looked up what year it came out because I was in the beginning, like anytime there was pitch darkness somewhere in the scene, the quality of the video, I'm seeing like blotchiness in that black part, and I'm looking at it going, well, this is formatted for my widescreen laptop. Why is the quality looking like this was made for VHS? Additionally, as soon as I figured out that, oh god, this is a really bad budget horror, which was within probably the first 5 minutes for me. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Within the first 7 minutes, because 3 minutes of that was basically just B-roll for the opening credits of just, oh, here's some cards and some chips, and that was ridiculous. But when I figured this out, I looked up, I was trying to figure out where it was distributed because like everything was like, oh, it was released in 2007 and it came to streaming services. I think it said 2022 or something like that. So I'm like, where was this distributed? Because this looks like something Sci-Fi Channel would have put out when they were being lazy, except it's worse than Sci-Fi Channel stuff. So where did this get put out? It was direct to video. It was direct to video. It didn't even get anyone to put it on TV first. It just straight to video.
Yeah, and I will say that the effects in this film are pretty terrible, but I'd say like the best effect probably in the whole film is at the very end when the ghosts kind of vanish. At least they kind of look like they're vanishing, whereas some of the face morphs or the blood splatter was so bad. So I guess if kind of setting the bar pretty low here, but for me that was kind of like the best look part of the film was when the ghosts vanish. I don't know. I'm kind of reaching there. And it is kind of funny how we had reviewed Poker Night with You, Void, a while back, about a year ago, and we thought that the ending in that film was like so long and multi-parted and contracted out, whereas this film has the most brief and rushed climax possible. So we have literally like polar opposite types of endings for these two horror films.
That we do. That we do. Maybe they should just stop trying to make casino and poker and blackjack themed horror films because there's not many good ones, it seems. We're having trouble finding any good ones.
But again, ironically, I did kind of find the bad guys of both films to be the best part of these films. Like at least, Sid Haig and Michael Berryman, at least they kind of have a little bit of presence on screen. And the bad guy in Poker Night was probably the best part of the film, if you ask me as well. So it's just funny how we have, we get the bad guy right, but everything around them just is not right. And that's just a shame. Because really the bad guys are, I mean, they're usually the most important part of a horror film, but it takes more than just that for it to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again, I think for me it's definitively a 1 out of 5 movie. It was fun to laugh at and to mock and to talk about, but it is total trash. And I would put it in the tier of badness as the film All in a Dominic Swain as far as films that we discussed together, Sam.
Yeah, this is a 1 out of 5 for me as well. It's not the worst thing that we've viewed on this channel. I still think Real Poker for me is, I think, the worst thing that we've reviewed. Terrible documentary. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to watch it again. It's not so bad, it's good. It's just lame. No offense to anybody who's involved in this. If the director's watching this, we don't hate you, nothing like that. I'll see Evil Bong 9 when it comes out, don't worry. But yeah, I don't recommend this.
How about your score, Void?
Does it have to be whole numbers?
No, if you
No.
want, whatever score you want to do.
It's got to be. I can't say it's a 0, but I'm gonna say a 0.5 out of 5 because it's not even worth a 1 in my book. Like a 1, I might be able to laugh at it. This I couldn't even laugh at this. This was just so bad. Like if it was so bad, but you can laugh at it, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go grab a bunch of my friends and we're gonna watch this and I'm gonna subject them to this lameness, but we'll all laugh about it. No, this I wouldn't even subject to my friends. Like, no. Even if I was mad at one of my friends, I would not make them watch this as revenge. It would just bore them so much, and it would bore me if I had to watch it again.
That's fair. So again, thumbs down on the Ebert Roper scare, Siskel Ebert Roper, but still a amusingly bad thumbs down on some levels. Which now gets us to part 2 here of our blackjack gambling casino themed reviews here, and this is again 21. Sam and I reviewed this about 2.5 years ago. I think we both said it was a 2 out of 5 movie for us at that time. But in between now and then, we both managed to read the book that the film was inspired by. And in a weird way, I gotta say, maybe having read the book now, I maybe appreciate the film a bit more than I did on my first watch. I don't know about you, Sam.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. So the book is written by Ben Mesrich, not to be confused with this Ben, of course. I think it was published in what, 2002 or something like that. It was about the MIT Blackjack team, the actual team from the 1990s. And it was Ben Mesrich, who was previously a novelist, his first nonfiction book. And you can kind of tell a fiction writer wrote it, not just because a lot of the events in the book are fake, as journalists have found out. It's very flashy, it's very quick. This is kind of a book that I really breezed through in like a couple hours. I'm a fairly quick reader normally, but this was a very quick read. And it tells the story of one particular player on the team, and then it sort of follows his journey as he sort of just joins the team initially, is unsure about whether or not he wants to play blackjack. His girlfriend doesn't approve, his father doesn't approve, but then he gets involved in it and he gets swept up in the Vegas lifestyle. And oh, there's parties, man. He gets to meet celebrities, he gets to watch boxing fights, and then of course it all comes apart. And in between each chapter, there's sort of the author meeting somebody who's related to the story in some way. He meets one of the strippers that this guy hung out with. He meets like a security specialist and all that. I didn't like those chapters that much. I didn't hate them, but it's really just about this guy's story about being swept up in this Vegas lifestyle and making this money and so on. And again, yeah, you can really tell where they got a lot from the book from.
Yeah,
Or
and
the
again,
movie.
for me, it's where the movie drew from the book first. It's like some of the clunkier scenes when I first watched the film were kind of explained and that they were in the book, and now not all those scenes were real, as we know there's some inaccuracies in the book, but at least they made more sense in the context of how they're in the movie. But at the same time, it also because they changed a good number of details about the main character. I thought that maybe they could have there was still good stuff to be mined from the book that could have been used in the film that weren't used, and so we're left with again probably the worst part of the movie for me is the main character. But in any case, I at least would say that I was again more positive. But again, this was a rewatch of the film for me. But I'm very curious to hear from Void. What was your original dynamic with this movie when it first came out or when you first saw it, and then comparing that to having you watch with us for this week?
Well, the first time I watched it, it was actually my dad pulled out the DVD from God knows where. I have no idea when or where he got the DVD from. But he threw it on the TV at the upstate house. And honestly, like initially I was disinterested because like, oh, he put on a poker film or blackjack film or whatever. Like at the time I didn't even understand the games really. Like I did, but I didn't. So he threw that on, and I wasn't really paying attention initially. But then something just kind of drew me in. I'm not sure exactly what. Maybe it was, I think it was probably when the main character then started interacting with Mickey, the professor. The first interactions there kind of did catch my attention, and I started to focus then. And from there, I was invested. Like it was genuinely interesting to me. Granted, I was in high school, beginning of high school, but I mean, I thought it was interesting. I mean, the story. I mean, now on the rewatch, yeah, some parts are a little eh, but when I was younger and watched it for the first time, I felt it was a compelling, interesting storyline. There was stuff going on. It didn't seem detached to me at the time. It didn't seem clunky to me at the time. Nowadays, like I rewatched it the other day. I also brought some friends because I wanted company to watch it because I could.
Mhm.
So I rewatched it then. Oh, sorry, itchy. And like I still pretty much enjoyed it. Like I did enjoy the film, but in different ways, I guess, from the first time through. Because I'm older, I understand the rules of blackjack now. I understand how card counting works. So what I didn't like on the rewatch was how, like, initially our main character Ben is presented as very three-dimensional, but as the story progresses he becomes more and more two-dimensional. Like everything starts to become more black and white with how he thinks and what drives him. Additionally, I am not a fan of how the film ended. I just don't like the ending. Like, not the ending, but the ending of the Vegas high life for him. I don't like how that ended. It felt very wrong to me. Like it felt wrong on multiple levels because ultimately Ben gets screwed. Mickey gets screwed. The only one who comes out of it good is the asshole who beat the shit out of Ben when he got caught the first time. Like, what? Why does he get to come out on top? And also, initially, the first time I watched it, I thought it was based on true events because it was presented like it was based on a real story. Nowadays, I know, like, it might have some very loose basis in a real story, but it's been heavily fictionalized. Now, I didn't get a chance to read the book, unfortunately, because Ben linked me it a bit late for me to actually find time to read it.
I didn't find it until recently, to be fair, online.
So, I will probably read it at a later point, but just hearing your thoughts on the book, it's like, okay, so maybe the book will make some of the parts I don't like less bad.
Well,
We'll see.
Well, so like, so for example, scenes from the movie that I think, having read the book, at least came across better to me was stuff like the airport scene, the strippers cashing in chips for them, and the Chinese casino scenes
Oh,
for the initiation stuff. So stuff like that is in the book, and even though some of those are fictionalized things from the book, at least them being in the movie because they're in the book, at least that justified them being in the story at all. As far as your point, I do agree with you about the ending of the film not jiving right, with the exception of, because we don't really get very good characterizations of the rest of the MIT Blackjack team. They made a good amount of money and had a lot of fun. Like the two Asian characters, Kiana and what's Aaron Wu's character's name again? Choi. And even Jill, I mean, they got to have all this fun, and they were on the team before Ben was, so presumably they've made more money than Ben made, maybe, or about the same because Ben makes a lot of money for them. So they probably came across, they kind of won if you ask me. Like because we don't learn anything about them, it's kind of hard to be for sure with that. But they got to have all the parties, all the clothes, all the kleptomania, all the slot stuff. They got to have a lot of fun. So because they got no focus, we don't really get it doesn't feel it that way maybe from the climax of the film. But I do think that could have been more fun if we got a more well-rounded view of the whole team because Ben's the main character. There's really only one or two scenes that Ben's not in, and it's mostly just Lawrence Fishburne's character in his security booth, talking to his coworkers. Like and again, I think Ben is the worst character of the film. Honestly, I think he's kind of a loser. Why he chooses to lie and who he chooses to lie to makes no sense. Like literally his friends are gushing over Kate Bosworth's character Jill, or in the first like two scenes of the film, and he's not going to tell him. By the way, I'm like with her. Like they would totally forgive him, and they ultimately do forgive him later in the film. But why not just become clear in the very beginning?
Yeah, I agree with you 110% Void that he starts out the film three-dimensional and kind of interesting and kind of dorky. And I think the guy who plays him, Jim Sturgis, does a good job sort of portraying this sort of like dorky but clearly smart guy, right? Like, he starts out with, this interview with this professor for the scholarship, and he has this banter, I wanted to always go to Harvard Med, this was my dream. And then the guy asks him, did you rehearse that? And he goes 14 times. Like there's these little moments that show that he's smart, like also when he's in the suit store and he does the math in his head. Like those are nice little moments to show that he's this sort of dorky, nice, smart guy. And then he says he's not going to join the Blackjack team. Then he just all of a sudden joins the Blackjack team. Then he's playing Blackjack. And then all of a sudden he's this like asshole out of nowhere. But it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like he's partying, he's having fun with Kate Bosworth. He seems to be a good team member. He knows the codes very well. He seems to be nice to the other members. Mickey likes him. And all of a sudden he's this jerk just out of nowhere. It just doesn't make any sense. The book does a lot better job at kind of showing his slow changes as time goes on.
Yeah, and another problem I have is that Ben wants to go to Harvard Medical School, which you need to be smart and all, but I kind of find this difference between being good at math and wanting to be a doctor. Like it doesn't really come across like, would you want this guy like stuttering and like umming every other word to be your doctor? I would certainly wouldn't. We need to know more about him as a person in that first act of the film to sell that this is like some guy we need to root for, because this is a guy that's an MIT, top of his class, applying for the top medical schools. Like he's got it better than the majority of Americans in '08 versus now. I mean, like he's like, and he wants a full ride for free to graduate school or medical school. It's like, dude, like, you're already in the top, 1% of the world as is. I mean, come on.
And keep in mind, he rejected the money his mom offered him that she said she'd been saving up explicitly for him all this time to go to medical school. Like, he could have still gotten the scholarship and paid his mom back. Like, he didn't need to say, oh no, I got it, even though he hadn't yet, and reject the offer. Like, yeah, it was a lot of money, but why are you rejecting a gift from your mom that she set aside specifically for this? Like, I imagine the mom, the character, she probably was saving this up like for years and years and years because she knew it was going to go towards whatever he was pursuing in college or post grad. Like, why is he rejecting that? That doesn't make any sense.
Not to mention, I'm very curious. He had this stockpile of cash above his dorm room, in the ceiling. And how is he going to pay for school with just cash? Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, three letters here, IRS. All right, the instant you show up to Harvard with this bag of cash, they're gonna be like, it's gonna trigger some alarm bells here. Like, how did you get this money
Also,
from?
like, why store it in your dorm room ceiling? Anyone could have stolen that, not just the asshole professor. Like, if someone knew you were doing this, anyone could have come looking for it.
Not to mention he
Just
had
leave
like,
it with your mom. If she asks where it came from, you'll be like, I'll explain it later. But store it with mom. Why is it in your dorm room?
my guess is they wanted just to inspire it from the book where it was his own residence that was broken into with the money taken, I guess. But even then, that's questionable. And it was, $315,000 or something, and he only owed Mickey 200K when he lost it on the table. So he kind of overextended his. I mean, it would have been kind of funny if he left like just 115,000 there, like as if he was being exact with the numbers. It could have been kind of funny. But also, I guess I could have appreciated had the scene where Mickey blows up at the team for the loss, which really is only Ben's fault. Like the rest of the team played it by the book. They were telling him not to do it, and it was kind of weird how he was kind of yelling at the whole group, even though it was just him to
Mm-hmm.
blame there. And if he had said like, you cost me $200,000, which could have been turned into 2 million or something like that, because that money is used for later bets later on in the trip, and then that could justify why he went and stole the whole stockpile in his dorm room. But I guess he has to be evil. And regarding Mickey, by the way, on this rewatch, I really kind of found he was probably my favorite character of the movie, but we got just so little of him. I mean, here's a guy that has been ingrained in MIT. He's got connections all over. He's passing out A's to his students because he's got connections here. He's been doing this for a long time. He was barred from, or he was a blackjack legend. He's kind of in half hiding because he does fly to Vegas, but he doesn't play until the very end. And he has to deal with all these young brats that are undermining his rules. And so first Fisher, gets drunk and breaks all the rules, and it starts up a whole kerfuffle here. And you really think that by then the team would be like, okay, let's not betray Mickey here. Let's just be very, following the rules here, because he's gonna, he has his reach here, and they don't follow that. And really, his scenes teaching and his scenes sort of being like a second life, his first life and his poker life, my budget life. Again, I want to see more of him. And because we spent so much time with Ben and just him being a total loser and idiot, it draws away from characters like him that could have been made this film a lot stronger.
Yeah, like we could have at least had like a moment where there was like a short flashback, maybe, just to show Mickey playing in Vegas and how they identified him as a not necessarily cheat. It's technically not cheating to count cards, but as a card counter who is being devious about how he's going about it. Like, I'd like to know why what is the story behind why they're after him at all, especially so many years later? Like, why do they care now? Why does this still matter? How badly did he rock Vegas when he was card counting in the past that it matters still?
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I also, I wanted to know what his financial situation was like because he's drawn back into Vegas to gamble, to be one of the big players. And it really, I mean, $600,000 sounds like a lot, but they're making millions over the course of the film. And so it didn't make sense that he would risk it all for one last score when really, I mean, how much of that money was he taking personally? It was still the main team plus him dividing the money up. And so he's risking everything just for one sort of mildly big score. It just didn't sell to me. So the guy had been so careful and so cautious over the course of his blackjack playing career here.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it was
you
a
bring up you bring up him being cautious, right? This is a point that I noticed in the book, right? In the book, they established everybody stays in separate hotels because there's cameras everywhere in the hotels, in the hallways, in the lobbies, all that. But in this film, they're all staying in the same hotel. They're all in the same suite. We see them walk into it. Like anybody, Lawrence Fishburne, who's tracking these guys down, can just use the cameras that are in the hallways to bust these guys in Act One in 30 minutes in the movie. Like that ticked me off so much when after I read the book and saw how cautious they were. And also Mickey's role is a lot better fleshed out in the book. That it's established he's one of several investors. He's providing some oversight, but the team can kind of make their own decisions. And when the team ultimately breaks away from Mickey, Mickey just kind of says like, "Good luck, guys. You know, here's just a couple of headers moving forward." Versus like Mickey's like the Svengali in this movie. Like if you cross him, he crosses you. He's got all these connections at MIT. He can get you just an A on your paper, no problem, or he can have you be an incomplete and you can't graduate. You know, it's like it's just such a weird characterization of him in this film compared to how the book is.
Yeah, and
I
also
really need to read the book.
no, I think it's definitely worth reading just for the to tie into the movie here. And then when Ben has sort of the gradual breakup of his friends from MIT, which again was underbaked and didn't make a lot of sense because again you have these three kind of nerdy, dorky guys, which again MIT is full of them, RIT was full of them too. So I respect that. But again, just tell them you're hooking up with Kate Bosworth here. I mean, it's maybe cliche, but like guy friends get it. It's kind of bro code. We get it. We'll take care of this solar powered, AI driven vehicle thing for the 209. You just do your thing and have fun, and all is forgiven. But he has to wait until the very very end to finally realize that, and so they can make up for the ending part of the film. And one more thing I thought that was unfortunate was that in the book they expand a bit more on the nature of the different categories of players. You have the big players, which is referenced here. You have the spotters, and then the book there's also a third one called the gorilla, which is kind of a in between of the two roles that our main character Kevin in the book is first put into. And I think I guess it was fine that they omitted that from the movie, I guess, because they even though it's a simplified version of the card counting system in the movie, they got enough of it where I didn't feel like it was too much of a negative for the film that it was simplified because you can't go over a bazillion things just for the sake of explaining it out. But they did keep a lot of the names the same as the book. Just Ben's a different character than from the book because like Fisher is one of the main guys for Kevin's friends in the book, and he's one of the big players that gets drunk and ruins the first part of the team's dynamic in the movie. With Lawrence Fishburne, I thought that he also was another character that really got the short end of the stick. It would have been nice to have a bit more depth into his character, maybe like in a flashback with him and Mickey could have been nice. But also, the biggest plot point I think that the book ruins for the movie is there is a simple technique that casinos use, which is just a soft banning of a player from playing blackjack. They see a player is winning, that anybody from the staff can come and say, you're going to play any other game here besides blackjack. You're not banned from the casino. You're not trespassed, but you just can't play. That could have happened. You don't have to send him in the back room and punch him and all that stuff. You could have just done that, and that protects the casino's assets all the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beating
the
people up
beating
is
him up.
illegal, counting cards is not. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Like that was straight up like mob behavior there, which makes no sense from a security firm that's being hired to assist in catching these card counters. like, okay, yeah, they're a security firm of sorts, so they'll catch people and throw them out and stuff like that. But beating the crap out of a kid in some random basement, it looked like, because it was all cement. Like, why? This is overkill. You don't need to beat the crap out of the kid. Just
And also,
throw him out.
it's established in the book that you can just refuse to go to the back room with them. I mean, like Ben just goes right with Lawrence Fishburne into the back room without any, resistance. When really you have witnesses around the casino. You don't have to. Let's call the police then if you have a problem with me, sir. I mean, put up some resistance there. He just, I mean, instantly caves in and gets his face beaten, or for the most part, obviously the last punch is pulled in the twist ending of the film. Um, one more problem I have with the film, though, and again, you mentioned the ending being a problem also, is that it's kind of a weird, lame chase scene where, first of all, Kate Bosworth's character is wearing heels during the chase scene, which makes no sense. And it's like, they're just running around the
Hey,
casino
hey,
causing the.
it is possible to run in heels.
Okay.
I have done it many times. The
All right.
only ones that are hard to run in are stilettos.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I believe she can run in heels.
Okay. Forgive me. I'm not familiar with other footwear. But the final sort of heist of the film is the only time they're wearing like proper disguises that where it's something on their face rather than just their clothing. And it's just weird because again, you would think that they would need to do that throughout the entire film because Lawrence Fishburne, he's on that team's tail like pretty early in the film. And so you'd think that since they didn't really mix things up, and there's one atrocious scene where he's literally like at the neighboring table, like looking over ominously, like what's stopping you from right there, like stopping them right there? I mean, I know you're trying to get Mickey here, but at least, you can protect your casino's money here by banning them from playing it that day or something.
Yeah, and just the chase scene itself is just really weird. I mean, here's this fairly straight-laced heist film up until this point, and then all of a sudden they're running through kitchens and they're running through hallways, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. It was very odd.
And of course, it's not quite clear if like Ben had established with Lawrence Fishburne's character, like we're gonna have a chase scene so that it looks good for Mickey or something like that. Like that could have been kind of a funny little, also a twist in the twist, like when they explained that was all explained to him in the back room when they originally said, "You're gonna get me Mickey right now." But that was not really done here. And then even though the end scene is kind of funny, where Ben is telling this whole entire film's plot to the guy from Harvard for the scholarship, and he's just kind of frozen there with a look on his face. But really, I mean, can we all agree here that there is zero chance in hell that this story would convince anybody from Harvard for getting a scholarship? Can we agree with that, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like it has it sure it's a life experience, but I feel like if you're trying to get into Harvard for medical, maybe the life experience should have something to do with medicine.
Just a little bit. And also, Ben or Jim Sturgis, he's sort of like narrating throughout the film, and I kind of found his line reading for the narration pretty flat. Like his acting, I think, was far superior than the narration line reading was, which is a shame because I think there's definitely I think I was okay with him as the leading man as the actor, just not the character per se. But I think narrating he really could have been a bit more vibrant with his vocal patterns there.
It's just how
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know he's not a voice actor.
yeah, I mean, we've seen how many films, poker films, casino films that have pointless narration in them. Like, I think you could have just cut the narration out. We don't need an exegesis on the phrase "winner, winner, chicken dinner" at the start of the film.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like if they had cut back on how much Ben was in the film and given the supporting characters more time to shine, I think you would have had a much better, more well-rounded film. I'm not saying I guess I'm okay with how much the MIT friends were used, but the Blackjack team, I feel like particularly Aaron Yu and Lisa Lapira as the token Asian members of the team to give it some credibility for the original story where the team was all Asian. They really get nothing to do at all, and it's kind of funny if you watch carefully. Kiana's character is the spotter for Ben more often than Jill is for Ben, and I just thought that was kind of surprising. But they really have no scenes together at all. Like at least Ben has some scenes of Jill, a little bit with Fisher when he's kind of hazing him in the airport and a few other things, but really the rest of the team doesn't interact with Ben at all. It's kind of strange.
Yeah,
You just
very
made me
odd.
remember something.
Go for it.
With that airport scene, I feel like the intention of shoving it into his underwear was to make it look like he just has a very prominent bulge. And they totally messed that up because there's multiple bulges sticking out there. Like, how did the TSA not notice that? That just looked weird.
Now, to be
And they're
fair,
supposed to glance at stuff like that. Even in 2007, before we had the giant magnetic turny things. I don't
yeah,
know what to call them.
again, I kind of let that scene slide a bit because it is kind of referenced in the book that they're really literally carrying belts of money on their body and on the planes. Although that's all, I guess, pre 9/11, so I guess that's why they got away with it. But again, it was a problem. It wasn't a huge problem for me as it was when I first saw the film. And anyways, with that, so I guess I kind of had to bump my score up to a 3 out of 5 because some of the scenes that really brought the film down for me on my first watch weren't as big a problem. And again, I thought that the pacing was okay. It didn't really drag too much. It kind of flew by for me. I liked Kevin Spacey's character and his acting. I wish there'd been a bit more of it, ignoring the outside world of Kevin Spacey's controversy there. And but again, so again, I'm actually kind of glad that you prompted us to rewatch this film, Void, because I liked it more than I did before. But it's still, I'd say, a weak 3 for me.
Yeah, I'll give this like a generous 3 out of 5. I'll kind of bump it over the 2 out of 5 for what you said. I mean, the book kind of brought out some qualities in it. I mentioned this, I think, on our previous review. I like Lawrence Fishburne as an actor. I always thought he's a pretty solid character actor, and I thought he did fine with his performance. Kevin Spacey, yeah, I mean, I should point out that he does say in this film the following words. It wouldn't be the first time a teacher was accused of that. Of course, nobody knows what really went down there. They never did prove it. Without the proof, it's a little like it never happened. So I'll just put that on the table and leave it at that. Yeah, like the acting for the most part's pretty good. There's a couple flashy editing moments. It's not a boring film. It's just not something that's super memorable. And if I had to do a thumbs up, thumbs down thing, I would give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, Ebert and Siskel did the whole like marginal thumbs up. I'd say marginal thumbs up if it's your first time watching it and you're not like overly analytical about films like I can be sometimes. Because there are some fun montage scenes and some good shots here of Vegas, even if I think that there could have been a bit more contrast between his life in MIT and his life in Vegas. But it's again, it's passable. Again, a bit better than when we watched a couple years ago.
So on my first watch back in high school, early high school, I probably would have said a 4 out of 5 if you asked me, provided I remembered the name of the film, because that seems to be my one handicap is I can never remember the name of this film until someone explains to me, oh, that phrase is in this film. Then it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that film. But now on the rewatch, because there were a few more things that did stand out to me, I have to say like a 3.5. Like I still like the film. It's just slightly less than when I originally watched it.
Right. So
Also,
all of us kind of merging our scores into closer to the center here upon our rewatch.
yeah. And if we're doing thumbs, it's like it's neutral. I can't go up, I can't go down, it's gotta be neutral.
Yeah. Now, obviously, neither of these two films we've discussed here have convinced me to play Blackjack, luckily, because it's just not, it's just literally all luck and a little bit of, your decision making leaning towards luck being more prevalent for you or not. That's why I'm a poker guy all for and true and true. I know that last time we had a podcast with you, Void, we were opened a medal. I mean, a medal unboxing. Unfortunately, my medal is still in the mail, so can't quite do that this time, but almost. It probably comes in the mail pretty soon anyway. As far as anything else you'd like to promote or talk about here, Void? I mean, I know I mentioned before that you are occasionally on Twitch, occasionally doing custom arts, for both for our podcast logo and among other things. Anything else going on for you?
Not currently. I mean, I participate with a different podcast, the Omega Republic, but I imagine most of your viewers aren't furries, so I'm not gonna like insist they go watch our nonsense. Granted, most of our nonsense is not because we're furries. Most of our nonsense is because you took too many ADHD people and stuck them in a game together. There is a lot of chaos. A lot of chaos. But it's the good kind of chaos.
Got it.
It's fun. Other than that, not much to promote currently.
Sure.
But if in the future I have something I want to promote, I'll hit you up to see if you could just give me a little call out or something.
No, and again, we're really thankful for you to both be our guest twice on our podcast, for making our logo for our podcast, and also contributing your voice acting for our previous on segment that we've used a few times. And so again, you are our biggest supporter by your contributions over the years, and so again, I thank you for that.
Of course, anytime.
And of course, you are more than welcome to come back to review other horror casino movies. I'm just Googling here. There's Remains from 2011. There's Leprechaun 3, which I have seen.
Yep.
Funny Man. I don't know what any of these other films are, but we are more than welcome to have you back on.
Well, I like horror films. So far, haven't had any good ones with the two horror films we've watched, but maybe the next one will be better.
Well, I'll ask you both then. What would you rate Haunted Casino or Poker Night as better or worse than the other one? What's your compare and contrast of those two films?
Oh, Haunted Casino is way worse. Way worse. But also, like, Poker Night is more of a detective kind of thing. Like, how do I explain it?
It's like 10% horror and 90% cop.
Yeah, and this was an attempt at supernatural horror that really missed the mark.
Sam, how about you? What's your
Yeah, I have the same opinion. I think this film is worse. I mean, the production value in Poker Night, I feel, is a bit better. It's not exactly great, but it's a bit better. Yeah, I mean, Sid Haig and Michael Berryman did okay, but not enough that I can be like, oh, they did great performances. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, I wouldn't watch either film. Both are ones out of five for me. So, it's not. There's not much of a difference here, but I'll say Poker Night edges it out.
I want to say I gave Poker Night a week 2 out of 5 on our first watch of it. So I think that tells you all you need to know that I have it a bit higher. And again, I found one or two components of Poker Night to be redeemable, but just nothing casino. So that's the case. And again, I'd rather just watch Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark than a dusty
Oh my
casino.
god, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I loved that series as a kid.
Yeah, I don't think because it was a kid show. I don't think they had any gambling component. Actually, that's not true. There was the Zombie Dice episode, so maybe we could review that in the future too. Again, we'll make a list. We'll go over it, and that could be our all good horror films come in trilogies. So imagine reviewing horror films if you want a third up time would be kind of fun. So we'll call
I'll
it for
look
next year.
forward to it. Oh, jeez.
Well,
Hopefully the next one's better.
it'd be hard for it to be worse, right?
It's gotta be above a 2.
Anyway, guys, this was a lot of fun. Thank you everyone on YouTube for listening. We'll see you next time. Enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Just stay out of the haunted casino. Ooh. Bye.